We had a fascinating segment on NBA Today, where the panel broke down some big news coming out of New York. The Knicks have officially made a move that many around the league, and especially their fans, had been anticipating for months. This wasn't just any roster decision. It was a signing that immediately gives us insight into what Mike Brown's rotations might look like, and, perhaps more importantly, what direction Leon Rose and the front office are taking as they continue shaping this roster. When this came out live on the show, the first thing that stood out was how perfectly this move aligns with what Knicks fans had been demanding. For weeks, there had been speculation about how the team would use that final roster spot, particularly with a veteran's minimum contract available. A lot of the chatter centered on whether it would be Ben Simmons or Landry Shamet. Simmons, of course, showed no interest in New York, which left a lot of people wondering what the next step would be. Then came the breaking update from Shams Charania. Free agent guard Landry Shamet has agreed to return to the New York Knicks on a one-year deal. His agent confirmed the news, and just like that, Shamet is back for his 8th season in the league. And on NBA Today, the analysts emphasized how much sense this signing makes for both sides. Last year was a tough one for Shamet in New York. He was supposed to contribute right away, but after suffering a dislocated shoulder, he missed half the season. When he did return, he struggled to find his rhythm at first. But eventually, he settled in and carved out a role as the 9th or 10th man in the rotation. In that role, he provided around 6 points per game, grabbed a rebound here and there, but most importantly, he shot 40% from three. That includes an incredible 47% on corner threes, which is a number that jumps off the page for any team looking to add reliable spacing. And that's exactly what New York needed. Even after a slow shooting start coming back from injury, Shamet regained his form and proved that he remains one of the league's most dangerous shooters when he's set and in rhythm. That's why this move was described on the show as massive for the Knicks. Shamet may not be a star, but he fills a critical gap that this roster had going into the new season. Something else that NBA Today highlighted was how Shamet has started to build a connection with the New York fan base. After playing on the Knicks team that made the Eastern Conference Finals, their first trip that deep into the playoffs since 2000, he mentioned being stopped and recognized by fans in the city more than ever before. That tells you he's starting to feel part of the culture here, and that matters in a city like New York, where role players who embrace the spotlight often end up becoming fan favorites. Now, of course, Shamet has other passions off the court, photography being one of them. He's spoken openly about pursuing that career after basketball. But, as was pointed out during the discussion, all of that has to wait, because right now, the Knicks need him locked in for a run at something bigger, competing for an NBA championship. And this is where Mike Brown enters the picture. NBA Today really stressed how perfectly Shamet fits into Brown's system. If there's one thing Brown has always been good at, it's optimizing three-point looks. We've seen it time and time again with his previous teams, and now he gets another high-volume, quick-trigger shooter to slot into his offense. For the Knicks, who already have great shooters like Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, and Deuce McBride, what they were missing was exactly this: a pure marksman who doesn't hesitate, who can run off screens, and who can hit those shots under pressure. Shamet checks that box. The comparison that was made on the show is that Shamet is like a discount Dante, a nod to players who carve out careers as elite complementary shooters. And while that may sound like a casual line, the point is clear. Shamet doesn't need the ball in his hands to make an impact, but when he's out there, defenses have to respect his shooting, and that changes the geometry of the floor. In fact, Tommy Beer pointed out that over the Knicks' final 10 games of the regular season, Shamet averaged 12.2 points, hit 3.3 threes per game, and did so while shooting 49% from the field, 49% from deep, and 100% from the line. Those are elite numbers, and the only player in the entire league who was hitting more than 7 made threes per 36 minutes in that span was Steph Curry. That puts Shamet in elite company, and it tells you just how important this signing could be. So, to sum it up, What came across very clearly on NBA Today is that this isn't just about filling the last roster spot. This is about sending a message. The Knicks know exactly what they need, and they're going out and addressing it. Landry Shamet gives them shooting, depth, defense, and another reliable veteran voice in the locker room. And for a team with championship aspirations, that's exactly the kind of move you need to make. On NBA Today, the conversation quickly shifted from simply announcing the move to really breaking down what Landry Shamet means for this Knicks team moving forward. One of the points that was brought up immediately was the comparison to Donte DiVincenzo, who became something of a cult hero during his time in New York. The panel emphasized that Shamet might not have the same overall impact, but he brings a very similar mentality. He's a fighter, a bulldog, the kind of gritty player who doesn't shy away from the physicality of the game. And that's exactly the type of personality that New York embraces. As Carmelo Anthony once said about players who make a difference in this city, sometimes it's just about putting on that hard hat and going to work. That's what Shamet does. He knows his role, he embraces it, and he executes it with confidence. Almost 68% of his shot attempts last season came from behind the three-point line. That tells you everything you need to know. He understands why he's on the floor, and that's to give this team instant shooting. Another detail that came out was from Ian Begley, who reported that Shamet did in fact have other options in free agency, but he chose to return to New York because of continuity, because he liked the locker room, felt comfortable in the city, and wanted to be part of this team's chase for a championship. That's important. For a player who's bounced around as much as Shamet has, starting as a promising rookie with the 76ers, moving to the Clippers, then the Nets, the Suns, and even a stop with the Wizards, choosing stability with the Knicks says a lot. He's been somewhat of a journeyman, a nomad in the NBA, but here in New York, he's found a place he genuinely enjoys, and that matters for both his play and his presence in the locker room. The panel also pointed out something fun. Off the court, Shamet has been spending time on his photography, even working at events like the US Open. But as was joked about on the show, all of that is going on the back burner because the Knicks have bigger goals. He knows his job now is to help this team push further than they did last year, and he's fully committed to doing just that. Then the discussion turned to the Knicks' depth chart. And this is where things get even more interesting. Assuming Mitchell Robinson is back in the starting lineup, and that is the expectation, the projected starters are Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, and Robinson. That's already a formidable five, a lineup that has the size, the shooting, and the defense to match up with anyone in the league. But it's the bench that drew the most attention. According to what was discussed, Jordan Clarkson is expected to lead that second unit, likely playing the point guard role over Miles McBride, who the coaching staff prefers to use more as a two. Behind him, you've got Josh Hart, who can slide seamlessly between the forward spots. You've got Gershon Yabusele providing depth in the front court, with Ariel Hookporty waiting for minutes behind Robinson and Town. And then there's Landry Shamet, of course, who now becomes that instant shooting threat off the bench. What stood out most during the segment was the balance and versatility of this bench unit. Clarkson, at any moment, is capable of putting up numbers that remind you why he once won the Sixth Man of the Year. Hart, if he comes off the bench, plays with such relentless energy that he could contend for that same award. Even McBride, at one point last season, was being mentioned as a dark horse in the sixth man conversation. That kind of depth just didn't exist for New York a year ago. And it's a huge credit to Leon Rose and the front office for building a bench that can actually change game. NBA Today made it clear. The Knicks already proved their starting five could compete with the very best. After all, they went to the conference final. But where they faltered was depth. Now, with players like Shamet, Clarkson, and Yabusele joining an already strong supporting cast, Mike Brown has options he didn't have before. He can manage minutes differently, keep his stars fresh, and still put out competitive lineups every time the bench checks in. And that's what made this move so important. It's not just about Shamet the shooter, it's about what his signing represents. A Knicks roster that is deeper, more balanced, and better equipped to survive the grind of an 82 game season and the intensity of a long playoff run. On NBA Today, one of the comparisons that came up immediately was the decision between Landry Shamet and Ben Simmons, and it was pointed out clearly this was never really a tough call. The panel reminded everyone of how Simmons was essentially played off the floor during the playoffs. He wasn't aggressive, he didn't look engaged, and there was even a sense that basketball is no longer his top priority. For a team like the Knicks, who are trying to build a contender around toughness, accountability, and reliability, bringing in Simmons simply didn't make sense. Shamet, on the other hand, checked every box in terms of fit, mentality, and what this roster actually needed. The conversation then shifted to the Knicks' rookie situation. Right now, they're evaluating whether to give that last contract to Mohamed Diawara or Dink Pate. Diawara put up solid numbers in Summer League, about 7 points, 5 rebounds, close to 2 assists, plus a steal per game. But his efficiency left a lot to be desired, shooting just 40% from the field and 15% from three. On the other side, Pate, despite playing fewer minutes, managed to post better overall production across the board. He scored more, rebounded more, distributed more, and did it with better shooting percentages. The analysts made a compelling point. Dink Pate simply looks a little further along in his development. He's versatile, he has a unique skill set, and he feels like the type of young player you'd rather invest a full roster spot in, rather than keeping him tucked away on a two-way deal. That decision will be worth monitoring, because it also reflects how the front office and Mike Brown view the balance between short-term depth and long-term growth. And speaking of Mike Brown, what became clear during the discussion is that we now have a better sense of how he wants this roster to look. The Knicks front office had been rumored to be chasing more guard depth all offseason, which is part of the reason they even entertained the Simmons idea in the first place. But as the panel stressed, with Shamet re-signed and with Jordan Clarkson now in the mix, do the Knicks really need another ball handler? The answer might be no. Clarkson is the underrated signing that people aren't talking enough about. Last season, he averaged over 16 points per game, 3 rebounds, nearly 4 assists, while shooting a respectable 36% from beyond the arc. But more importantly, he's done it in the postseason. With the Utah Jazz, he put up close to 17 points a night across multiple playoff runs. He's fearless, he's comfortable with the ball in his hands, and he can absolutely slide into that backup point guard role when needed. To act like Clarkson can't be that secondary ball handler is ignoring the evidence we already have from his career. And then there's Gershon Yabusele, another under-the-radar but very important addition. He brings energy, toughness, and shooting, averaging 11 points, nearly 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and hitting 38% of his threes last season. His presence on that second unit, alongside Clarkson and Shamet, gives New York a bench that is suddenly dynamic, versatile, and more dangerous than it has been in years. The bottom line coming out of the NBA Today segment was simple. This Knicks roster is real. Shamet provides shooting and grit. Clarkson brings scoring and playmaking. Yabusele adds size and versatility. And the rookies give them options to build for the future. Combine that with a starting lineup that already proved it can go toe-to-toe with the best teams in the league, and you're looking at a group that has both the talent and the depth to make another deep postseason run. Fans should be excited, because the Knicks didn't just fill a roster spot. They made a choice that reflects a clear plan. They chose players who want to be here, who fit the system, and who make the team tougher and deeper. And as the panel closed by saying, "Don't expect this to be the last move," the Knicks are far from done. This front office has shown that it's willing to stay aggressive. And with trade season looming in January and February, New York could still be lining up for another big swing. So, while today's headlines belong to Landry Shamet, the larger story is this. The Knicks are building a roster with championship intent, and they're doing it one smart move at a time. The conversation around the New York Knicks took a surprising turn on NBA Today, and it really set the stage for where this franchise stands as training camp gets closer. The discussion began with the report that the Knicks had been officially denied in their pursuit of one of Europe's most intriguing rising stars. According to multiple outlets, Maccabi Tel Aviv rejected New York's request to bring in their top center, Roman Sorkin, for even a short trial period. And that decision left many wondering, what exactly is the Knicks' plan going forward? And why did this attempt come so late in the offseason? On the program, the panel highlighted that New York has been carrying an open roster spot for weeks, with a veteran minimum contract ready to use. Initially, the expectation was clear. They wanted to add another ball-handling guard to the rotation. That was the narrative all summer long. The Knicks had been connected to guards like Malcolm Brogdon, who could stabilize the second unit, and Landry Shamet, a proven three-point shooter with playoff experience. But then, in a surprising pivot, reports surfaced that the front office was turning its attention to a power forward or center from the EuroLeague, with Roman Sorkin being at the very top of their list. The issue, as discussed on NBA Today, is not that Sorkin lacks talent. In fact, he's been considered one of the most promising European bigs, a versatile 6'10" presence with the ability to stretch the floor and rebound at a high level. But timing mattered, and this is where the Knicks got caught flat-footed. The analysts pointed out that Sorkin had an NBA opt-out clause in his contract, but it expired back on July 28. That was the window for New York to act. Had the Knicks been aggressive earlier in the summer, they might have had a real shot. Instead, they waited until September, at a time when Maccabi Tel Aviv is preparing for its own season, counting on Sorkin to be their lead center. At that point, it was always going to be nearly impossible for the team to let him go. What made this even more frustrating, according to the panel, is that people close to Sorkin himself were surprised by the decision. Many believed the club would have given him the opportunity to at least showcase his game in front of an NBA staff, especially with New York offering up to $1 million for the trial arrangement. But Tel Aviv stood firm, making it clear that their priorities were with their season ahead and not accommodating NBA franchises at this late stage. The Knicks, as a result, walked away with nothing but questions about how the situation was handled. And here's the reality. By missing that deadline, the Knicks now have to wait until next summer if they want another shot at Sorkin. By then, he'll be a year older, and the question becomes whether he'll still be able to translate his game effectively to the NBA level. On NBA Today, the sentiment was that this entire episode felt like a wasted opportunity, and it raised legitimate concerns about the front office's timing and decision-making. If you wanted this player badly enough, why not pursue him earlier? Why not make the call when his clause was still active? Instead, the Knicks tried to pivot late, and now they're left scrambling. From there, the conversation shifted to what this means for New York's immediate future. Training camp is just around the corner, and the Knicks still don't have that last roster spot filled. The panel emphasized that this denial from Maccabi Tel Aviv forces the Knicks to turn back to the original plan, finding a guard who can bring depth, spacing, and reliable ball handling. That brings the focus right back to names like Landry Shamet and Malcolm Brogdon. One thing that stood out was the optimism around Shamet. The show reminded everyone that Shamet has already proven himself in New York's system, and his three-point shooting would be a major weapon off the bench. In fact, the analysts recalled how crucial he was in the postseason, not only hitting big shots, but also playing impressive defense, including memorable moments against TJ McConnell at Madison Square Garden. That's why, as the panel agreed, he remains the frontrunner for that final roster spot. Still, they didn't dismiss the idea of Brogdon either. In fact, one analyst said that if the Knicks could land Brogdon, it might be the more impactful move long-term. But the key takeaway was clear. With Sorkin officially off the table, New York can't afford to waste any more time. Decisions need to be made before camp opens, and the Knicks have to lock in their roster if they want to maximize their potential this season. On NBA Today, the conversation naturally shifted to the other names still on the Knicks' radar, and one of the most intriguing possibilities mentioned was Malcolm Brogdon. The panel broke it down this way. With Brogdon, you're not just getting another guard, you're getting a true ball handler, someone who can settle the offense, run the second unit, and step in as a reliable backup for Jalen Brunson. That's been the glaring need all summer long for New York, and Brogdon checks nearly every box. He's steady, he's experienced, he facilitates, and he defends at a high level. In short, he brings exactly the type of presence that could elevate the Knicks' depth and give them insurance when Brunson needs a breather. But as the analysts pointed out, there's one big problem that has always followed Brogdon throughout his career: his health. As talented as he is, it feels like he's constantly dealing with something, whether it's a nagging injury, a recovery setback, or simply being unavailable when his team needs him most. And when you're a franchise like the Knicks, a team with postseason expectations and aspirations of finally breaking through to the NBA Finals, that risk becomes magnified. Do you really want to invest in a player who might not be there when the lights shine the brightest? That's the question New York's front office has to weigh carefully. Now, while some players carry the label of injury-prone, others sit at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. That led the show to pivot briefly into a broader discussion about the MVP race heading into this season. They pulled up the latest FanDuel odds, and it gave everyone a fresh look at where the league's brightest stars currently stand. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander topped the list at 160, a reflection of just how dominant he was last season with Oklahoma City. Right behind him sat Nikola Jokic at + 310, Luka Doncic at + 370, and then Giannis Antetokounmpo at + 1200. The numbers tell the story. The gap between the top three and the rest is significant. Victor Wembanyama, the rookie sensation turned sophomore, is already climbing the board at + 1400. Anthony Edwards follows at + 2500. Kevin Durant at + 5000, and even Cade Cunningham has his name in the mix at + 6000. But perhaps the most eye-catching part of that list for New York fans was seeing Jalen Brunson's name at the very bottom, sitting at 8000. Think about that for a second. Just a couple of years ago, no one would have considered Brunson an MVP-caliber player. Now, after back-to-back seasons of growth and a playoff run where he looked like one of the best guards in basketball, Brunson's name is at least in the conversation. That's a testament to his rise and to how far the Knicks have come in building around him. After that, the discussion circled right back to the Knicks roster situation, which at this point has become one of the most talked about topics around the league. With Roman Sorkin officially off the table after Maccabi Tel Aviv refused to even entertain New York's request, and with Ben Simmons no longer viewed as a realistic or viable option, the choices have narrowed significantly. The panel pointed out that the Knicks' front office is essentially down to two names for that final roster spot: Malcolm Brogdon and Landry Shamet. And according to the conversation on the show, Shamet has emerged as the clear frontrunner. The reasoning behind this is straightforward, but also very compelling. Shamet doesn't just provide shooting, he provides elite floor spacing, something that every team with championship aspirations values highly. He's a career 38% shooter from deep, and the Knicks saw firsthand last season how valuable he can be when the pressure is at its peak. He understands New York's system, he already has built-in chemistry with the locker room, and he is comfortable playing in his role. That kind of familiarity matters. It means fewer growing pains, less time adjusting, and more immediate impact. But it's not just about his shooting stroke. The panel also reminded viewers of Shamet's defensive presence. This is something that tends to get overlooked when people talk about his game. There were moments in last year's postseason where fans inside Madison Square Garden were chanting his name because of the defensive energy he brought, specifically the way he hounded opposing guards like TJ McConnell. When you combine that defensive effort with his ability to knock down shots consistently, what you're really getting is a player who embraces doing the little thing, spacing the floor, staying locked in defensively, and never needing plays drawn up for him to make a difference. Now, that's not to say Malcolm Brogdon wouldn't bring tremendous value if the Knicks decided to go in that direction. In fact, one analyst on the panel made the argument that if Brogdon could remain healthy, his overall impact would surpass Shamet's. Brogdon is a true ball-handling guard who can step in as a backup for Jalen Brunson, stabilize the second unit, and give the Knicks another player who can initiate the offense. On top of that, he's an excellent perimeter defender and has proven throughout his career that he can perform in high-leverage playoff situations. In many ways, he checks off more boxes than Shamet. But here's where the consensus started to form. Availability, as the panel kept repeating, is the best ability. And when you look at Brogdon's track record, there's just no ignoring the constant injuries that have followed him throughout his career. The analysts stressed that New York cannot afford to gamble on someone who might not even be available when the postseason rolls around. For a team with legitimate finals aspirations, the margin for error is razor-thin. Shamet, while maybe not as versatile or dynamic as Brogdon, represents the safer and more reliable option. He's healthy, he's steady, and he has already shown he can fit seamlessly into what the Knicks are building. So, while Brogdon's ceiling as a signing might be higher, the floor with Shamet is far more secure. And that's why, at this stage of the offseason, with training camp rapidly approaching, the Knicks appear to be leaning heavily toward the option that offers certainty, stability, and continuity. The bottom line is this: training camp is just weeks away. Time is running out for New York to make a decision. The panel stressed that the sooner the Knicks finalize this last roster spot, the better. The team doesn't need lingering uncertainty heading into camp. They need clarity, roles defined, and rotations ready to be built. Whether it ends up being Shamet or Brogdon, the Knicks have to act fast, because hesitation has already cost them with the Roman Sorkin situation. When I tuned into NBA Today, the conversation around the Knicks really caught my attention because it laid out the kind of crossroads this franchise is standing at right now. The panel spent a good chunk of time discussing how New York has once again found itself tangled in the free agency shuffle, and it became clear that one of their main targets is slipping away. That update hit like a shock at first, but when you really listen to the reasoning behind it, you start to realize it's not a devastating blow at all. In fact, it might actually put the Knicks in a better spot moving forward, forcing them to lock in on what truly matters this offseason. Now, what made the segment so interesting wasn't just the fact that the Knicks lost out on a name they had circled. It was how it tied into the bigger picture of what Leon Rose and this front office are trying to build. There's been so much noise around this team, so many rumors flying, whether it's about who they're chasing or who they might have backed away from. And for weeks, a lot of that noise centered around one particular saga. The Ben Simmons chatter was everywhere. Did he actually get an offer from New York? Was there real interest? One side claimed there was, the other side denied it. And the truth seemed to shift, depending on who you listened to. It was messy, and honestly, it distracted from the bigger priorities. What NBA Today made clear is that this situation probably never had much substance. The Knicks knew deep down that Simmons wasn't the solution, and walking away from that drama was the right move. Instead, the conversation shifted toward other targets, and one name that stood out was Malcolm Brogdon. Now, here's a guy who fits the mold of what the Knicks are looking for. A steady veteran, a guard who can handle the ball, defend, and hit shots. His resume speaks for itself. Rookie of the Year, experience with winning team, someone who has shown he can be a factor on a playoff roster. But as the panel pointed out, the big question has always been health. Brogdon has battled injuries throughout his career, and that's something any front office has to weigh carefully. His numbers from last season weren't bad at all. Around 13 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, but the shooting dipped, and the burden of playing on a struggling team definitely impacted his performance. The important part of that discussion, though, was context. NBA Today highlighted that while Brogdon is a talented player, the Knicks aren't the only team eyeing him. There are several other franchises in need of backcourt help. Contenders, playoff hopefuls, teams that could easily outbid or outmaneuver New York if it comes down to it. That's where the urgency comes in. Training camp is right around the corner, and teams are already circling, looking at the best veteran options left on the market. If the Knicks drag their feet, they risk losing him too, just like they did with other names earlier in the summer. And here's where my takeaway lines up with what NBA Today was hammering home. This isn't about missing out on one guy or another. This is about clarity. The Knicks can't afford to get lost chasing distractions or going after players who don't fit the identity they're trying to build. Losing out on someone like Brogdon isn't the end of the world. It's a reminder that the front office has to stay locked in on its real priority, adding reliable ball handling, finding shooters who can space the floor, and making sure there's enough depth behind Jalen Brunson so this team doesn't crumble when he's off the court. That's the core mission. So while fans might be disappointed at first hearing that another free agent is probably off the board, I think the message from NBA Today was pretty clear. This is actually the kind of push the Knicks needed. Sometimes losing out forces you to stop settling for good enough and to actually go find the right piece. That's why I don't see this update as a setback at all. If anything, it's pointing the Knicks toward a smarter, more focused path for the rest of this offseason. When I kept watching NBA Today, the conversation naturally shifted toward where Malcolm Brogdon could realistically land, and honestly, it was fascinating. The panelists made the case that if you forced them to put money down right now, the smart bet would be on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And you know what? I can see the logic there. It makes sense. Minnesota's in need of more veteran playmaking. Mike Conley is getting up there in age, and adding someone like Brogdon, who can shoot, facilitate, and defend at a decent level, would feel like a natural move for them. It's the kind of transaction that just screams Timberwolves, a franchise looking to strengthen their backcourt with reliable depth for another playoff push. Golden State came up in the conversation as well, but most people on the panel agreed that the Warriors are probably going to go in a different direction. They've been tied to a lot of names, but one storyline that popped up was Seth Curry possibly joining his brother in San Francisco. Now, that's more of a sentimental angle than a basketball one, but let's be honest, the NBA has a way of producing those kinds of moments. Seth has spent time in Charlotte, and at this stage of his career, you wouldn't be shocked to see him look for one last run with a contending team, maybe even alongside Steph. It's not out of the question, though the panel didn't lean heavily toward it. But circling back to Brogdon, the main takeaway from the discussion was this. Even though he's a talented guard and has had his moments in the postseason, including stretches where he put up over 20 points per game in a playoff series, the Knicks just don't feel like the most logical destination anymore. His resume is solid, his shooting numbers in the playoffs have been respectable at 38% from deep, and he has experience with teams that made deep runs. Still, when you match that profile against what New York actually needs, it becomes harder to picture him as the solution. Yes, he'd be a good veteran presence, but betting on the Knicks to land him right now feels like a stretch. And that's when the conversation turned toward what the Knicks do need. When you look at their roster, when you really study the rotation, the glaring weakness isn't necessarily another ball-handling guard. It's depth on the wing. They're thinner there than people realize. Of course, OG Anunoby can slide in, Josh Hart has the versatility to play multiple spots, and even Precious Achiuwa can soak up some minutes depending on the matchup. But you can see the gap. You can see that adding another true wing would give this team far more balance than bringing in another guard. And speaking of guards, this is where Jordan Clarkson's name really came into the spotlight. NBA Today highlighted how fascinating his fit in New York could be, especially since he's spent the majority of his career as more of a shooting guard than a pure point guard. The Lakers shifted him away from being a lead playmaker years ago, and since then, he's carved out a reputation as an explosive scorer off the ball. But now, with this Knicks roster, the conversation has shifted. Could Clarkson actually slide back into more of a lead guard role? Could he be the one who helps shoulder the offensive load when Brunson sits? That's where Clarkson himself enters the story. He recently spoke about how quickly his decision to join the Knicks came together, and the way he described it was honestly pretty remarkable. According to him, the process took all of 2 minutes. 2 minutes. He said that being in New York, feeling the energy in the arena, knowing how passionate the fans are, that's what drew him in. He was clear about it. When you play well, they love you. And when you don't, they'll let you know. That accountability, that intensity, was something he actually embraced. He even shared the behind-the-scenes moment with his agent. Clarkson was watching Carlos Alcaraz at Wimbledon, sitting alongside Rich Paul, when the call came through. "Where do you want to go?" his agent asked. Clarkson didn't hesitate. His answer was immediate. "I want to go to New York." Within minutes, the message was relayed, the interest was confirmed, and just like that, Clarkson was a Knick. That story tells you everything about where his mindset is. He wasn't drawn to comfort. He wasn't looking for an easy landing spot. He wanted the spotlight, the challenge, the opportunity to perform in the biggest basketball market in the world. Statistically, Clarkson backs up that decision with production. Last season, he put up over 16 points per game, chipped in rebounds and assists, and even added a steal a night. He shot just under 41% from the field and 36% from deep, including an impressive 50% from the corners. A sign of just how valuable he can be as a floor spacer in an offense that often relies heavily on Brunson's creation. His ability to create his own shot, break down defenders one-on-one, and still work as a complementary scorer makes him a fascinating addition. NBA Today left the discussion on Clarkson with an important question. Is he ready to take on more responsibility as a lead ball handler when the Knicks need it? Or is he better suited to remain in that sixth man, instant offense type of role? That's the debate. From my perspective, Clarkson has the tools to step into that job, and pairing him with Deuce McBride gives New York flexibility. But what matters most is that Clarkson chose New York, and he did so without hesitation. That speaks volumes about what this team is building and the type of player they're attracting now. When the conversation on NBA Today reached the final stretch, the point guard situation for the Knicks became the centerpiece. And the consensus from the panel was clear. New York actually has more flexibility in the backcourt than people are giving them credit for. Between Deuce McBride, Jalen Brunson, and now Jordan Clarkson, the Knicks don't exactly need to be scrambling for an emergency floor general right away. Clarkson's arrival gives them a legitimate option as a secondary ball handler. And the way the panel framed it, the real challenge for the front office isn't about adding another guard right now, it's about balancing the roster in other areas. The discussion turned toward roster construction, and it was interesting to hear how the analysts framed it. They suggested that the smarter move would be to target a forward or another versatile wing, rather than immediately chasing a veteran backup guard. That kind of addition, they argued, would give the Knicks more size and defensive balance. And then, later in the season, when the buyout market opens up and teams start shuffling their rosters, you could always bring in that break glass in case of emergency type of guard. That's how contenders operate. You address the most pressing weaknesses first, and leave room for adjustments when the playoff picture becomes clearer. But then came the part that really stuck with me, the deep dive into Clarkson's postseason resume. The numbers don't lie. Over his last 3 playoff runs with the Utah Jazz, Clarkson averaged more than 17 points a game while playing nearly 30 minutes a night. His shooting splits, 45% from the field and 35% from 3, combined with a true shooting percentage hovering around 58%, show that he's not just a volume scorer, he's an efficient one when it matters most. The panel emphasized that Clarkson has already proven he can handle the intensity of the playoffs, and in New York, that kind of experience is going to be invaluable. Think about it. Clarkson's not walking into a rebuilding team where every mistake gets magnified because of inexperience. He's walking into a roster that already has a star guard in Brunson, defensive anchors like OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson, and versatile role players like Josh Hart. That's the type of environment where Clarkson can thrive. He doesn't have to be the guy every night. He just has to be the spark, the secondary playmaker, the scorer who can step up when the defense collapses on Brunson. And that's exactly what the Knicks have been missing in big playoff moments. Another layer to all of this, and it was mentioned briefly on the show but deserves attention, is how Leon Rose and the Knicks front office managed to smooth over tensions with Rich Paul. Remember, there was friction there in the past, some unfinished business that could have complicated future negotiations. But the fact that Clarkson, a clutch client, ended up in New York tells you everything you need to know. The relationships were mended, the conversations were handled professionally, and in the end, the Knicks got their guy. That's a sign of growth from this front office. That's how you build credibility around the league. So when NBA Today wrapped up the conversation, the tone was optimistic. Yes, The Knicks lost out on a few names earlier in free agency. Yes, Malcolm Brogdon probably isn't coming to New York, but in Jordan Clarkson, they got a proven scorer, a fearless competitor, and a player who actively chose the challenge of Madison Square Garden. That says a lot about where this organization stands right now. Clarkson could have looked for comfort elsewhere, but instead, he wanted the biggest stage. For me, that's the biggest takeaway from everything we heard on the show. This isn't just about adding another guard. It's about adding someone who embraces pressure, who feeds off the energy of the fans, and who has shown in real playoff battle that he's not afraid of the moment. And that, more than anything, is why Knicks fans should feel excited about this signing. On NBA Today, the conversation took an interesting turn when the panel shifted focus to the Knicks rookie, Mohamed Diawara, and the ongoing uncertainty around his contract situation. It's been a topic that hasn't received a lot of clarity in recent weeks, and naturally, fans are eager to know what's really happening behind the scenes. Now, what stood out to me during the discussion is that this wasn't just about a rookie waiting for a deal. It was about intent, motivation, and the message Diawara himself wanted to send to the organization. The panel highlighted that despite all the questions surrounding his status, Diawara has made his position crystal clear. He's not worried about what type of contract comes his way, whether it's a standard NBA deal, a two-way contract, or time in the G League. His attitude is that he'll embrace whatever role the team asks of him, because what matters most is staying with New York and being part of the Knicks' long-term vision. That is not something you hear every day from a rookie. Most players in his position would be focused on securing the most stable or lucrative path possible, but his response signals a different level of commitment. He doesn't just want to play in the NBA, he wants to play in New York. That's exactly what was emphasized on NBA Today: motivation, dedication, and trust in the organization's plan. Diawara admitted he doesn't have a date yet for when his deal will be finalized, but he expressed full belief that it's coming. And when you hear that, it's easy to connect the dots. Clearly, the Knicks front office has reassured him that he is in their plan, even if the paperwork hasn't been completed. That level of confidence speaks volume. What's fascinating here is how his mindset mirrors what we've seen from the free agents who joined New York this summer. Over and over again, the pattern has been players wanting to be here, players choosing New York because of what they believe this team is building for the future. And Diawara, though just entering the league, is echoing the same mentality. He's not treating this as a stop on his professional journey. He's talking as if this is home, the place where he wants to grow and contribute. For a rookie, that's powerful. And let's remember the bigger picture. When you're a second-round pick, often your path isn't guaranteed. You don't always know where you'll land, or if the team that drafted you even intends to keep you right away. But Diawara's message is that it doesn't matter how difficult the climb may be. He is willing to start wherever the Knicks want him, to grind in the G League if that's what it takes, and to prove that he belongs on the main roster. That's the kind of hunger front offices love to see, and it's exactly what the Knicks are looking for as they shape their roster with both veterans and young talent. NBA Today also emphasized that the most likely path forward for the Knicks involves fully leveraging the roster and contract flexibility they currently hold. This isn't just a minor procedural detail, it's a strategic advantage that allows New York to shape the team in a way that balances immediate competitiveness with long-term growth. Remember, the Knicks still have the ability to add another veteran on a minimum salary deal, in addition to 3 two-way contracts and a second-round rookie exception slot. That combination of options gives the front office room to maneuver and ensures that they can reward performance, secure talent, and protect their future at the same time. According to the discussion on the program, Mohamed Diawara has clearly emerged as the frontrunner for that rookie exception slot. The reasons are multi-layered. For one, his summer league performance sent a message. He's not just a placeholder or a player with potential down the line. He's someone who came in, competed at a high level, and consistently demonstrated the skill, work ethic, and basketball IQ that make a team seriously consider accelerating his development. His commitment to New York's system, coupled with his evident readiness to embrace whatever role is asked of him, sets him apart from other candidates for the rookie exception, such as James Nagy or Kevin McCullough Jr., who may be in the mix for two-way deals, but haven't yet shown the same level of immediate impact or buy-in. What the panel highlighted repeatedly is that this isn't just about signing a contract. It's about sending a signal. Diawara isn't waiting passively for the Knicks to decide his fate. He's actively shaping the narrative around him by showing patience, professionalism, and a willingness to take any contract offered in order to remain part of the organization. He is demonstrating the kind of mentality that franchises crave in young players. He's proving that he understands the value of trust, development, and earning his minutes, all while aligning himself with the team's long-term vision. When you put all of these pieces together, the takeaway is unmistakable. Mohamed Diawara is doing more than positioning himself for a contract. He's setting the tone for the type of player he intends to be in the NBA. He's signaling to the Knicks that he's motivated, unselfish, and prepared to contribute wherever and however the team needs him. That kind of attitude, especially from a rookie, is not just encouraging. It's infectious, and it sets a standard for everyone around him. NBA Today made it clear that with that level of commitment and performance, it's only a matter of time before New York officially finalizes his deal. The writing is on the wall. Diawara's future with the Knicks is not a question. It's an inevitability, and the organization is positioned perfectly to make that a reality. On NBA Today, the conversation about Mohamed Diawara didn't stop with his comments on his contract. The panel went even deeper into what his summer league performance meant for his trajectory. And honestly, the discussion turned into one of the more eye-opening evaluations of where this Knicks rookie might fit into the bigger picture. The expectation when he was drafted was clear. He was supposed to be a 2 to 3 year project, someone who would take time to develop before being ready to contribute. But after what we all saw in Las Vegas, that narrative has shifted. He showed flashes of skill and maturity that nobody expected this early, and it forced everyone to reconsider just how long of a project he really is. As it was pointed out on the show, if Summer League is any indication, we're no longer talking about a 2 to 3 year process. This could very well be a 1 to 2 year path if he gets the right development, and that development is almost certainly going to come this season in the G League. That's not a knock, it's a natural part of growth. The G League has become the proving ground for young players, a place where they can get consistent reps, build confidence, and learn the NBA system at a professional pace. For Diawara, spending time there won't mean he's been pushed aside. It will mean the Knicks are investing in him the right way, making sure he's ready when his number is called. And let's be clear about one thing. Diawara's intentions could not be more obvious. He loves New York's long-term vision. He wants to develop with the Knicks, and he wants his career to be tied to this franchise. That type of buy-in from a rookie is rare, and it's why the panel was unanimous in saying New York is going to lock him up with a contract. From their perspective, this isn't just a routine signing. It's the kind of move a championship-level organization makes. Teams that are serious about contending don't just stack stars, they also secure hungry young players who want to be part of the foundation. And Diawara fits that bill. That idea flowed into a bigger point made during the segment. The Knicks, right now, are operating like a championship-caliber team. Every move reflects that ambition. Whether it's adding the right veterans, resolving off-court issues to bring in key contributors, or keeping their options open with contract flexibility, they're acting like a team that knows the window is here. And when you behave that way, the odds start to reflect it. NBA Today brought up the latest numbers for the Eastern Conference, and the Knicks are right there, climbing closer to the very top. The Cavaliers may still sit at number 1 with plus 230 odds, but the Knicks have closed the gap considerably, sitting in second place at plus 310. Right behind them, the Orlando Magic are creeping up at 5,500, and then the list drops off quickly with Atlanta, Detroit, and Philadelphia trailing behind. The 76ers, notably, are moving in the wrong direction, slipping from plus 1,400 to plus 1,500. That tells you a lot about how the market views the stability of those organizations compared to New York. The Knicks are gaining momentum, not losing it. And this is where the panel tied everything together. Building a championship roster isn't just about your top stars. It's about depth, about role players, about developing the next wave of contributors who will keep the team competitive in the years to come. That's why the rookies matter so much. Names like Ariel Hukporti, Tyler Kolek, Kevin McCullough Jr., and of course, Mohamed Diawara. These are the players who represent the future core pieces that could come off the bench, fill key roles, and eventually step into even bigger responsibilities. Under Mike Brown, the opportunity for those players is real. The panel was adamant that this coaching staff is going to give young guys minutes, give them the chance to fail, to learn, and to grow at the NBA level. That kind of environment can accelerate development in ways that sitting on the bench never could. For Diawara and the rest of the rookie group, this is the season to take advantage of that window. Mistakes will come, but so will growth, and the Knicks are committed to making sure they're learning in the right system. So, the question becomes, where do you stand on this Knicks team? Do you still doubt their ceiling? Or are you starting to recognize that this is a squad built with intention, depth, and a clear plan for both the present and the future? NBA Today made it clear. The excitement around New York isn't just about the big name, it's about the rookies like Mohamed Diawara, who are already proving that they belong and showing the kind of hunger that makes a franchise stronger. All right. So here's the latest from the First Take panel, and things have really taken an unexpected turn in the whole Ben Simmons and New York Knicks free agency saga. Initially, it was all about Ben Simmons potentially retiring, and the reports were coming in fast that he might even be declining a deal from the Knicks. But now, a completely new angle is emerging, and it's giving us insight into not only who the Knicks are targeting, but also who the frontrunner is for that final roster spot. And let me tell you, this story is evolving faster than anyone could have predicted. Now, before we dive too deep, let me just remind you, if you're part of the 57% of viewers who haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button, because we're breaking this down daily. And trust me, you don't want to miss any of this as training camp is right around the corner. The Knicks have to make some key moves in free agency. They've got rookie deals to finalize, and preseason is looming. It's crunch time, and every decision matters. And honestly, I'm personally excited because, well, the weather outside is getting cold, and the only thing keeping me sane is basketball. So, let's get into it. The Ben Simmons saga has been, in a word, chaotic. The Knicks were very interested in Simmons initially, and it makes sense why. He's a ball handler, he can run the floor, and he can defend big men. Something incredibly rare in today's NBA, and something the Knicks have historically lacked. This kind of versatility is gold for a team trying to maximize every roster spot. But here's the catch. Simmons is unique, yes, but he comes with a lot of baggage. He has strengths, no doubt, but also glaring weaknesses, and the Knicks were trying to weigh the risk versus reward. Now, the breaking news, as reported by Stefan Bondi, really shook things up. Simmons reportedly was unsure if he even wanted to continue playing. That's right, the very same player who's been an All-Star 3 times is questioning whether to step back onto the court at all. And it gets more complicated. The Celtics were reportedly interested as well, but Simmons declined a one-year contract offer. New York, at this point, is limited to minimum contract offers, especially with training camp approaching. Simmons entered the summer hoping for something above that minimum after splitting last season between the Nets and the Clippers. And if that wasn't enough, his agent, Bernie Lee, recently dropped him as a client. According to league sources, this decision happened after Simmons signaled he wasn't even interested in the Knicks conversation. Now, let's be honest, Simmons is a complicated case. He's made millions over his career, and at this stage, he's thinking carefully about what he's willing to accept. Sitting on the bench in New York, under the scrutiny of a demanding fan base for a minimum deal? That's not appealing to him. And while some might call that soft, I get it. Playing in New York isn't just about basketball. It's about handling pressure, scrutiny, and expectation at every moment. And if he can't handle it, then he's not the right fit. Plain and simple. The Knicks don't need someone who's reluctant or unprepared to face that stage. But here's where it gets interesting. There are other options out there, players who can step up, handle the pressure, and actually contribute. Enter Landry Shamet. Yes, Shamet. who some may know also has a budding photography career. And yes, he's taking amazing shots at the US Open. But more importantly, he's still a legitimate NBA option. Shamet isn't signed yet, but the Knicks remain very interested because he's proven he can handle the big moments and deliver on the court. Unlike Simmons, Shamet seems ready, willing, and able to thrive in New York's unique environment. And that brings us back to the main point. The Knicks are in a position where they need to be smart. Simmons has shown repeatedly that he may only be interested if the financial terms meet a certain threshold. Considering his recent playoff performance, where he appeared in only 5 games, averaging 1.4 rebounds, 0.8 points, and 0.8 assists, it's hard to see why any team would offer him more than a veteran minimum. His expectations appear out of step with reality. And for the Knicks, that means looking elsewhere. So, as First Take discussed, the narrative around Ben Simmons isn't just about talent, it's about fit, mentality, and readiness. And in this evolving Knicks situation, it's clear that the team is weighing its options carefully. They need players who are not only capable, but also committed to stepping up in the spotlight of New York City. And right now, the scales may be tipping away from Simmons and toward players like Shamet, who have proven they can handle that pressure. So, picking up from where we left off, the First Take discussion really emphasized how the Knicks front office has been navigating this complicated free agency situation. According to Ian Begley's latest report, the Knicks have been in dialogue with Ben Simmons throughout the offseason, and yes, they have expressed interest in him. But, and this is key, they never actually made a formal offer. That's significant, because it signals that the Knicks are being cautious, strategic, and maybe even a little skeptical about what Simmons brings to the table right now. Meanwhile, players like Landry Shamet and Malcolm Brogdon are very much on the radar for that final roster spot, and it's becoming increasingly clear that these two might actually be more realistic and reliable options than Simmons at this stage of his career. Let's break down Simmons' numbers from last season because context is everything. Playing 22 minutes per game between the Nets and the Clippers, he averaged 5 points, 5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists per game. He shot 52% from the field, and his defensive box plus-minus was 1.8. That's solid. It shows he can still contribute defensively, make smart passes, and grab rebound. But here's the hard truth. He's not the same all-star he once was. That explosiveness, that game-changing ability, clearly, it's diminished. And that's tough to see, but it's reality. Now, contrast that with someone like Landry Shamet. Despite a shaky start to the previous season due to not fully trusting a dislocated shoulder, Shamet ended the year shooting 40% from 3, 46% overall from the field, and an impressive 47% from corner threes. He averaged 5.7 points and 1.2 rebounds in just 15 minutes per game. He may not have been the flashiest player, but when he got his minutes, his consistency and efficiency really showed. That's exactly the kind of reliability the Knicks need. Someone who can be counted on in both regular season and high-pressure playoff moments. And then there's Malcolm Brogdon, who had a down year shooting only 28% from 3 with the Wizards, well below his career average. But context matters. The Wizards as a team struggled, which naturally increases defensive focus on veterans like Brogdon. On a team like the Knicks, he would face less defensive attention, get more open looks, and likely see his efficiency improve. He's a capable combo guard, can run the floor with Jalen Brunson, and could slot in nicely as a secondary playmaker. That said, the Knicks already have several guards in the 6.2 to 6.3 range, including Brunson, Deuce, Jordan Clarkson, and Tyler Kick. So Brogdon's fit isn't entirely seamless. Nevertheless, other teams, including the Warriors and Timberwolves, have shown interest in him, which makes the Knicks' decision even more strategic. They have to move quickly if they want him. Meanwhile, Shamet has been working out in New York and is fully committed to returning to the Knicks. He deserves it, and he's earned it. In the playoffs last year, he only got meaningful minutes in the final 4 games, but he made every second count. He averaged 6 points, 2 assists, and 1 rebound, played exceptional defense against the Pacers, and had a true shooting percentage of nearly 72%. He shot 50% from the field and an incredible 54% from three. Shamet proved that when given the opportunity, he can deliver at a high level. And that's the thing. While he might be considered undersized at 6'4", Shamet can comfortably play either wing spot. And in the modern NBA, that size is actually fairly typical. For the Knicks, bringing back Shamet makes perfect sense. He's trustworthy, versatile, and already familiar with the system. It's hard to argue with what he brings to the team. On top of that, the Knicks are still evaluating their roster in terms of depth and defensive coverage. They need guards who can handle big moments and can step in when others go down. And yes, they also want another big man who can guard other big men. Karl Anthony Towns obviously isn't known for his defense, Mitchell Robinson has been injury-prone, and Ariel Hukporti is still developing. There's also James Nagy, who could step into a significant role on a two-way contract if needed, and Mohamed Diabate, who, while undersized, could also provide minutes at center. Gershon Yabusele can even slide into the 5 occasionally. So, while it's understandable that there's still some interest in Ben Simmons, it's equally clear why the Knicks are considering more reliable, battle-tested options like Landry Shamet and Malcolm Brogdon. It's about fit, commitment, and consistency, qualities that Simmons has struggled to demonstrate lately. And as the First Take panel emphasized, the Knicks need to make these decisions carefully because the wrong move could set them back, while the right move could solidify their roster for a strong upcoming season. And here's the bottom line, the truth that's become absolutely clear in the First Take discussion. Ben Simmons simply doesn't have genuine interest in joining the Knicks, because, honestly, Ben Simmons doesn't really know what he wants to do with his career, or even with his life at this point. That's the reality. And for a team like New York, where the pressure, the spotlight, and the expectations are enormous, you can't afford to have a player who isn't fully committed or mentally invested. That's just not how championship-level teams operate. So, with that being said, the obvious move is to go out and sign Landry Shamet. And it's not just obvious, it's strategic, it's practical, and it's the move that makes the Knicks stronger immediately. Shamet has proven that he can contribute, he's consistent, he knows the team, and he can handle the high-pressure moments that playing in New York demand. This isn't a gamble. This is the smart, logical choice for a Knicks team that wants to compete at a high level next season and beyond. And really, that's the message coming out of the First Take conversation. Sometimes the most obvious decisions are the right one, and sometimes you just have to cut through the drama and the distraction. In this case, that drama has been Ben Simmons, a player whose past performance doesn't match the expectations he's trying to set for himself now. Meanwhile, you have a player in Shamet who's ready, willing, and able to contribute from day one. That's exactly the kind of clarity the Knicks need when making roster decisions in free agency. So I want to know from you guys, the fans, what do you want to see happen? Are you on board with the Knicks bringing back Landry Shamet? Do you think there's still any room for Ben Simmons in this story? Or are the Knicks better off moving forward with players who are fully committed, like Shamet, Malcolm Brogdon, or others in their sight? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. I want to hear what you think. And of course, if you enjoyed this breakdown and you want to stay up to date with all the Knicks news, all the rumors, and all the analysis straight from the perspective of a First Take style discussion, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I really appreciate each and every one of you for watching and engaging. Stay tuned, because the Knicks off-season is far from over, and there's still a lot to break down as we approach training camp. Alright, that's it for now. I'm looking forward to seeing how all this plays out, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Go Knicks! Under Mike Brown, the outlook for the Knicks' young players is really starting to shine, and this is exactly the kind of conversation that came up during a heated segment on First Take. Now, we've been hearing a lot about development being a priority for the Knicks, and Mike Brown's reputation for growing young talent is exactly what made him the right hire. According to reports, Ariel Hukporti should be in line for a much bigger role this season, and that's something that you cannot overlook if you're thinking about the depth and future of this Knicks team. And there's also been some updates on Tyler Kelly and how Mike Brown plans to integrate him into the rotation. Today, I want to break down all these reports, piece by piece, and give you the kind of analysis you'd hear on First Take, straight from the lens of a Knicks fan and analyst. First, let's talk about development, because that's really where the Knicks are focusing under Mike Brown. Development isn't just a buzzword. It's about turning homegrown talent into legitimate contributors and eventually stars. Everyone wants to see a player come through the system, grow, and become a cornerstone of the franchise. The Knicks have a handful of young players who have the tools, the potential, and the physicality to be just that, but only if they get the right opportunities and the right coaching. And this is exactly why Mike Brown's arrival is such a huge deal. Under his leadership, these young Knicks are going to get more minutes, more chances, and more guidance than they ever had under the previous regime. Ariel Hukporti, in particular, stands out in this discussion because, frankly, he has the clearest path to consistent minutes. James Edwards over at The Athletic highlighted this, pointing out that among Tyler Calais, Pomey Deer, and Ariel Hukporti, it's Hukporti who is most likely to find a steady role early in the season. Now, let's be honest, Mitchell Robinson is a tremendous talent, but he's had a long history of injuries. Even if he starts the season healthy, there's always the chance he'll be on some sort of load management plan to keep him fresh over the long grind of the NBA season. That's where Hukporti comes in. I see him being the backup center in a rotation that stretches to 10 or 11 players, giving him game reps when Robinson is resting. And here's the key point. This is exactly the kind of opportunity that shows the front office is serious about developing young talent. They didn't hire Mike Brown just to manage stars. They hired him because he's proven he can develop benches and bring out the best in young players. And let me tell you, during First Take, we were all nodding at this point because it's something Knicks fans have been craving for years. Too often in the past, with former coach Tom Thibodeau, starters would play heavy minutes even in blowout wins. You're up 15-18, 20 points with 4 or 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and who's out there on the floor? The starters. Where's the bench? Where are the young players? Nowhere to be found. That was frustrating, and it limited the growth of players who could really step up if given the chance. This season, with Mike Brown at the helm, that's going to change. So let's break it down. You're going to see Kevin McCullough Jr., Tyler Clay, Pomey Deer, and yes, Ariel Hukporti get meaningful minutes, especially in what you might call garbage time. But let's not underestimate what that means. These minutes are crucial for development. And when it comes to Hukporti, out of all the young players, he has the best chance to secure a consistent role. Why? Because he's likely going to back up Mitchell Robinson. And with Robinson, as we've said, you never know what could happen. Injuries, load management, illness, back-to-backs, you name it. Every one of those scenarios opens a door for Hukporti. And if we learned anything last season, it's that when given the chance, he maximizes it. Every single time he's stepped on the floor, he's shown growth, poise, and a work ethic that deserves recognition. This isn't just about who he's backing up. It's about the effort, the preparation, and the way he's approached last season and the offseason. He's put in the work. He's shown flashes in Summer League, and now, with Mike Brown trusting him, Hukporti is going to have a real opportunity to shine. And let me tell you, this is exactly the type of narrative First Take loves. Young talent being given the platform to rise, and a coach willing to prioritize development over just playing his stars for every single minute. Hukporti has earned this, and the Knicks are going to benefit from it in a way that fans are going to see all season long. Now, moving on to another young player who has caught our attention, Tyler Kolek. According to James Edwards, who's been breaking down the Knicks roster with his usual precision for The Athletic, Tyler Kolek has a potential pathway to significant minutes this season, but it's far from guaranteed. Let me explain why. Under Mike Brown, player development is obviously a priority, but so is winning. Kolek is a talented rookie, showed flashes during Summer League, and even during his rookie season, had moments as a table setter that could make you believe he's capable of growing into a steady contributor. But here's the complication. he has to navigate a tricky situation with Miles McBride. McBride, at 6'3", could easily assume the backup point guard duties off the bench. But there's a twist. Mike Brown might view him more as a shooting guard. That's right. Even though he's a natural point guard, Brown's rotations and matchups could shift him into a different role entirely. And if that happens, Tyler Kolek suddenly has a window to sneak in and secure more consistent minutes. But it's not guaranteed, because even if McBride isn't blocking his path at point guard, the rest of the roster creates natural competition. You're talking about a lineup featuring Jalen Brunson, Jordan Clarkson, OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson, Karl Anthony Towns, Ariel Hukporti. Pick your poison. That's a lot of talent for a coach to manage in a rotation. And realistically, Mike Brown is likely going to run a 9 or 10-man rotation most nights. That's where things get complicated for Kolek. Even if he's deserving, even if he's worked his tail off, the opportunities may come sporadically, depending on matchups, load management for starters, and how deep Brown wants his bench to go. If garbage time is the primary window for his minutes, that's not a consistent role. And in a season where the Knicks are still looking to fill that last roster spot, likely another guard on a veteran minimum, the competition for minutes only intensifies. It's not about talent alone, it's about timing, opportunity, and how the rotation shakes out night to night. Now, here's where it gets interesting. During a segment on First Take, the discussion turned to how Mike Brown plays the matchups. And that's a double-edged sword for young guys like Kolek. Matchups are going to dictate playing time heavily. That means sometimes Kolek sits, sometimes Pome Dyer sits, and sometimes Ariel Hukporti gets called in because Robinson is resting or dealing with a minor injury. These rotations are fluid, and they're designed to maximize performance while also preserving star players for the grind of the season and, ultimately, the playoffs. And that's where Hukporti shines. He's going to get the primary backup minutes behind Robinson, and that's huge. The Knicks are clearly prioritizing giving him a real role, not just token minutes. This isn't about filling garbage time. This is about preparing Hukporti to step in when it matters most, whether Robinson needs rest, is injured, or during back-to-back stretches. The system Brown is putting in place allows young players like Hukporti to maximize their development while also protecting the team's star assets. That's strategic, that's smart, and it's the kind of forward-thinking approach that's going to set the Knicks apart this season. And let's not forget the bigger picture. As First Take analysts pointed out, the Knicks are being taken seriously in Vegas right now. According to FanDuel's updated odds, the Oklahoma City Thunder are favored, but the Knicks sit just behind at +550, with the Cavaliers close at +600. What that tells us is that the odds makers believe New York is not just participating, they're a legitimate contender. And if you're a contender, you play rotations intelligently, you manage your stars' minutes, and you strategically insert your young players when the opportunity presents itself. That's exactly what we're seeing with Mike Brown's plans, and it's why Hukporti and even Tyler Kolek are going to be critical pieces this season, even if Kolek's minutes are more limited. So the takeaway here is clear. The Knicks are constructing a system where development and winning go hand in hand. Hukporti is positioned to be a consistent contributor as Robinson's primary backup, and Kolek has a pathway, albeit a more difficult one, depending on McBride's role and matchup considerations. And this, my friends, is exactly the kind of strategy First Take would applaud, balancing player development, team depth, and matchup-based rotations to maximize success over a long NBA season. So, when we look at all the young players on the Knicks roster this season, one name clearly stands out above the rest: Ariel Hukporti. Out of all the talent, he has the best chance to carve out a consistent role. And that's not just speculation. It's rooted in the way Mike Brown is structuring his rotations, balancing player development with game strategy, and being smart about minutes for key players like Mitchell Robinson. Hukporti is positioned perfectly to step in whenever Robinson needs rest, deals with an injury, or is being managed through a tough stretch of game. And let me tell you, if Hukporti continues to show the level of maturity, focus, and skill we saw from him last season and throughout Summer League, He's going to make the most of every opportunity, no matter how sporadic it may seem at first. Now, Tyler Kolek also has potential, but as we discussed, his pathway is a bit more complicated. It's not guaranteed, it's not a lock, but he has the tools and the mindset to contribute when called upon. And that's what makes this Knicks roster exciting. You've got young players like Huckporty and Kolek ready to step up, combined with experienced guys like Jordan Clarkson, Jalen Brunson, and Mitchell Robinson, creating a dynamic balance that can keep the Knicks competitive night in and night out. It's exactly the kind of depth and versatility first-take analysts have been talking about when they break down team rosters and projected rotations. So, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Huckporty's opportunity? Do you agree he's going to be the consistent young player who sees the floor the most? Are you excited to see what Tyler Kolek can do when he gets his chances? Drop your thoughts down in the comments, because this is the kind of discussion that makes following the Knicks so engaging. And honestly, seeing the growth of these young players under a coach like Mike Brown could be a real turning point for the franchise. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today's breakdown. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates, insights, or exclusive Knicks content. Until next time, Knicks fans, take care of yourselves, your families, and each other. Keep supporting your team, stay passionate, and let's get ready for what's shaping up to be an incredible season. Peace, love, and all the best to you.